Well, welcome to this Grandpa Don podcast. This is a day I'm going to give you a little bit of humor in my tradition of being a Scandinavian. I should talk a little bit about it because I know you all have seen me do dumb jokes or think you have heard me do dumb jokes, but I could just give you a brief history that when those who were immigrants from the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, I suppose, and others, they were the ones that didn't know how to speak the right language. They were, strangers in a foreign land. They were trying to figure out what their place might be in the whole thing, and they realized that they made mistakes, and sometimes they were kind of humorous mistakes. And there was a sense that at least some of them had to make some fun about it. You know, when you have troubles in life, sometimes if you laugh about them, you can handle it a little bit better. I think that's where it came from. It's sometimes also a ribbing of competition between the groups. The Norwegians and the Swedes, for example, they did not seem to get along really well. There were some pretty, serious differences and conflicts that they could have in their early years as new immigrants in different and maybe similar places where they interacted with each other. So I just want you to know that's where some of this comes from. I think that the other thing that I've learned about humor is that it's not a good thing, and there's good and bad humor, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned. My values, I guess, are the ones that I'm giving you. One of them that I learned a long time ago is that if you're going to tease somebody or make fun with them or make a joke about them, whether it's your brothers or sisters or some friends of yours, it's not a good idea to tease them about something that they feel bad about or that they feel self-conscious about. The best thing you can tease somebody about is something that they're pretty confident in. So if you feel pretty confident in how you can play basketball, you can tease that person about losing or missing a basket, and it won't be anything more than just funny. But if it's somebody that's trying hard and not making it and failing at what they really want to do, and you tease them about it, that's when they get hurt. And maybe you've experienced that yourself sometimes. So I just want to make that little comment about our humor. And sometimes we do misjudge. We sometimes don't realize if somebody is going to be hurt by some joke we make. And if that happens, of course, we need to make amends. We need to, apologize and to learn our lesson about how that worked and how that felt. So I just want to lay out my little fun here with that little warning, I guess, about what you make jokes about or what you might laugh about. And there are many things otherwise I'm sure we could talk about that might come up as we go along. But I'm just going to start out my thing here by saying I know some of you all have been out to Montana, and there's a ranch in your family and Eline's side of the family. So I have a little joke here about Montana. It says, Lars, one of this Ole's friends, Lars was bragging to Ole about the size of his Montana ranch. He said, I got so much land, it takes me 6 hours just to drive around it. Ole nodded his head and he said, yeah, Lars, he said, I had a car like that once too. And so there the joke was, right? The joke was the bad car, right? And that didn't make the Montana ranch quite so big if he had a bad car. Oh yeah, here's another one. Some of you live in North Dakota. I did too for a while. And so here's Ole. He had just moved from Norway, where there was forests all around, and he moved out to the bare plains of North Dakota. And there again, he asks his friend Lars, well, then where are all the trees here in North Dakota? Lars said, just like there is everywhere else. The trees are between the 2s and the 4s. Did you get that one? I think that 3 and the tree was mixed up there, wasn't it? Here we got another one. This has to do with the husband and wife relationship humor that we have sometimes. It says, one day, Lena said to Ole, Ole, I've noticed that our neighbor brings his wife a big bouquet of fresh flowers every week. Would you ever consider doing that? Ole, he thought for a little moment. He says, no, I don't think so. He says, I just don't know her that well. Okay. I think he missed the point that Lena was making, and I bet you know what the point was, right? Here's another one. It's a joke about Lena. It says here that Lena is an exceptional housekeeper. She's been married and divorced 3 times, and every time she keeps the house. A little humor about divorces, I guess, huh? I don't know if I'm going too fast for you, am I? If I am, I'll slow down. I see there's a conversation, about husbands and their work, how good they are for working and everything. And so here there's Lena's friend Clara. Clara tried to tell her, to tell Lena that her Ole, he was a quitter. And when it comes to jobs, he's a quitter. He doesn't stay on the job. Well, Lena came back to his defense, and this is what she said. Oh, no, he's definitely not a quitter. He stays into every single job he's ever had, right up until he got fired. So there you go. We are either a quitter or you get quitted. Yeah. Can be a painful thing when you lose a job being fired. I can guarantee you that. Okay. Sometimes we go to the doctor's offices and as the questions are asked of us about our health and our situation. And the annual physical now is for Ole. He's been needing, to have the doctor check him up for the annual physical. And for whatever reason, the doctor asked Ole, do you have some difficulty in making up your mind? Ole thought, and he thought, and he thought. He said, well, yes and no. I think he just answered the question, didn't he? You ever like that, where you can't make up your mind? I am when I try to go to a restaurant and decide what I want to eat. I don't know what, and how can I make up my mind on what I'm going to order to eat? So that's a tough one. Well, I tell you what, talking about medical stuff and health issues, here's another one that says, Ole, he went out the door to go golfing with his friend Lars now. He's a golfer. I don't know if any of you in our family are golfers. I'm not much of a golfer myself. I was out a few times and I figured I'd better quit. I wasn't doing too good. But anyway, Ole runs out the door to go golfing with his friend Lars. And Lena, she's very concerned about Ole. She says, now you go on, be real careful out there, Ole. I hear that when Sven went out golfing last week, he had 4 strokes on the first hole. Oh my, what kind of strokes was that? Apparently she thought it was like a heart attack or a stroke to get you sick, so she didn't understand golfing at all, right? Some of you've got a dog or two, don't you, pets, in your life? I used to. When I was a kid, I had a dog or two. And we had cats and stuff too, when I was on the farm as a kid. So that was where I had pets. But anyway, here's the situation. Ole and Lena have a dog, and sometimes what happens, the dog gets lost, and that's what happened. Well, anyway, Ole is telling Sven about this dog that it's just left and gone, and they don't know where it is. And Sven, he suggested that Ole should run an ad in the local newspaper, to tell them that the dog, there's a lost dog. Well, Ole, he laughed when he heard that. He said, that would be totally a waste of money. He says, Sven, our dog can't even read. Oh, okay. I guess that's true. Does your dog read? Maybe some neighbors might, though, huh? Yeah, the misunderstandings here are the example now of language and what is being asked of you. Ole, Sven asks Ole, they're having coffee, and they're talking, and Ole, he said, have you ever had the measles or the chicken pox? No, Ole said, no, I've just had Rice Krispies. You know the difference between Rice Krispies and measles, I hope. Not a breakfast food. Or chicken pox. No breakfast food there. Oh, my. Misunderstandings can be really goofy. Well, I tell you what, there's got to be one or more here. Yeah, I think there's at least one of you in my grandchildren world who has been to the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, that's down in South Minneapolis, and it says here that Ole had visited there. He visited a section there where they had some things that were from the ancient Roman world, a very historic place. Well, and of course, wouldn't you know, Ole accidentally just happened to bump himself into a display case, and you know what happened? It tipped over a glass vase there, and it broke. And the man that was the guard, to protect the wonderful stuff there, he said, Ole, don't you realize that the vase you just broke is over 2,000 years old? Well, Ole, yeah, he says, well, but I'm sure glad it wasn't a brand new vase. So there you go. You can talk about, the difference of value between a 2,000-year-old vase from Rome and maybe a new vase. I don't think Ole got it very good there. Oh, my goodness. Well, there's always going to church time, and I'm sure you've all been in church, as I have, too. I've been the preacher sometimes, as they say, but here it is, Sunday morning, and Ole, he gets up right in the middle of the sermon, and he walks right out of the church. Lena, she just didn't know what to do, but she told the pastor afterwards, she's a pastor, she says, you saw what Ole did, don't take it personally. He's been a sleepwalker ever since he was a child. I don't know if that helped any, did it? Not only was he put to sleep by the sermon, but he walked out and slept walk out of the church. What a deal, huh? Yeah. I have to say that never happened to me. I've never seen it happen. Have you? I don't think so. That would be a pretty unusual thing. Thank goodness. Yeah, I bet your moms have done this maybe sometime. You might call up a motel sometime, and you can ask them questions. Like we're thinking of staying overnight. Now, do you allow pets to be brought to your motel, or do you allow children to come and be in your hotel? Some hotels might have just, adults only or some ridiculous thing like that. But anyway, so this is the situation, and Lena, she got the job, to answer the phone, at the local motel or hotel, whatever it was. And there was somebody that actually called and asked a question like that, and then they asked her whether she said they asked her, well, now do you take children at your motel? Lena, no, she replied, no. She says, we only take Visa and MasterCard or American Express. We don't take children. Maybe that's a good thing. That would be like selling your children, wouldn't it? Misunderstandings, of course. Yes, that's what the humor is. Oh, I bet you've done that once or twice too. Have you misunderstood something by somebody asked you? Well. I'm old now, and I do get the newspaper, and I do like to look into the newspaper and read what are called the obituaries, which means the notices of people that have died, and something about their life and who they are and when their funeral might be and so forth. And there was one day Ole was doing that, and doggone it if he didn't look there and he saw his own name in the obituary paper. He got really upset. He called Sven up. He says, Sven, this is a real puzzle, he says. I just found my own obituary in the paper. And Sven was really puzzled. He said, yeah, I saw that too, he said. By the way, Ole, where are you calling me from? Maybe the other side of the grave. Oh, boy. Yes. Well, that was an interesting telephone conversation. Man. Well, this is kind of a bad one, I suppose, but, I'll just tell it to you anyway. Gustav, Gustav, he was the guy who just, they called him the town drunk. He was a fella that just kind of was around, but he liked to drink more than he did anything else. He was always binging drinking and, didn't have any money to speak of and that type of thing. That's kind of a thing that happens in people's lives, and so this is about him. He was in a terrible shape, and it said that after drinking all of the alcohol that he could find around the house, this is the saddest thing. He drank a whole quart of varnish. Have you ever seen varnish, or put varnish on some table or varnished a table or something? Can you imagine drinking varnish? Yeah, I don't want to do that. Anyway, of course, he died. But as they said in the newspaper, he had a beautiful finish. Or not. No, I don't think he had the finish of a nice table. No, I don't think so. See, that's the kind of humor. I wouldn't tell that joke to a fellow that was, in that condition. I wouldn't. But there it is. Well, then, talking about funerals, I'm kind of in a morbid place here, aren't I? Well, there was a long funeral procession. Maybe you've seen that too, driving by, you see the hearse and you see the cars following and maybe the police out in the front there and, directing traffic to go down the street. And there it was. So, somebody came by to Ole, who was standing there, and said, Ole, do you know who it is that died? And Ole stopped to think a minute. He said, well, I think it might be the guy in the casket. Okay. I guess that's probably true. Oh, my goodness. This is something that could have happened to me. Ole had his annual physical again. This is another year of a physical. And the doctor said, Ole, you're about 20 pounds overweight. And then Ole said, oh, doctor, he says, that's not the problem. The problem is I'm 10 inches too short. Okay. I guess that could be the way to look at it. I don't know. I don't know. How do you make yourself taller? I suppose if you put on some, what do they call that, elevator shoes, you could, stand up real tall. Oh, boy. I don't think that would help any, though, would it? Yeah. Ole, he was, he was like I am, old, and he's talking to his friends, and he said, it's awful, just awful to grow old alone. That Alina, she hasn't had a birthday in over 7 years. I guess that's the joke, isn't it? The ladies don't like to add up the numbers on their birthday, and so they never get old. But the old man gets old, but the young woman stays young, I guess. Is that how it works? There's that tradition, in our culture that the ladies don't want to admit their age because they don't want to think people wonder if they're really old or not, There's that what do they call that? Vanity, to be vain, isn't that what it was? Yeah. I'm not too vain, although I could be a weather vane. I could point my finger out the window to see where the wind is blowing. But that's another story, of course. Maybe some of you might want to, this might be one that you could all try out and see what you think here. This is about a car. Ole had his car. I don't know if you've had cars that are like this, but he was trying to sell his car. It had over 250,000 miles on the car. That really had been going a long way. And Lars, of course, his friend, told him that what you do is, he says, Knut, down there at the shop there, the car repair shop there. Yeah, he says, Knut, he knows how to reset those odometers, so the car doesn't look quite so old when you're trying to sell it, Ah, okay. So Ole goes down the next day to the Knut's garage, and by golly, Knut, he set back the car odometer to just 15,000 miles on the car now. Well, the next day, Lars saw Ole and said, well, how did you manage? Did you manage to sell that car? And Ole said, well, he said, that would be the stupidest thing to get rid of a car like that with only 15,000 miles on it. So if you want to keep your car, just turn back the mileage, and then you'll drive a car that only has 15,000 miles on it. Now, there's a solution. I don't know. You see the kind of jokes these are, well, here's one that might give us an idea of the competition and the differences between the feelings between the Norwegians and the Swedes. This one here is, again, about Ole, of course. And this time he's got a job as a grave digger, at the cemeteries. And what was interesting is that whenever a Swede would die, he'd always dig the graves 10 to 12 feet deep instead of, 6 feet deep, which I guess is the normal depth of a grave. Then somebody finally asked him, why did the heck do you do that, making the Swedes hole that down at that 12 feet that you put them? Well, he said, I've learned a long time ago that way down deep, those Swedes are really nice people. So I guess you dig a deeper grave for them, right? Oh boy, there's another one. I'm going to end with this one. It's a joke about snowstorms. I think we've all had enough of that this past winter, and every winter we seem to have enough of it. So, it was a whiteout snowstorm. You've had those up in Fargo, I know that, and we've sometimes had them down here too where you can't see where you're going. So, Ole advised Lena that this is how you do it in the winter. The safest thing for you if you are out in the snowstorm and you can't see where you're going, get behind a snowplow when you're going home. That is the safest place because then you can follow the snowplow. Okay. So she's out at Walmart, to shop, and then she gets out to the car, and then the whiteout is terrible, and she doesn't know how to. And by golly, if she didn't see a snowplow. So she started to follow the snowplow. And she followed the snowplow and saw. And finally, the driver of the snowplow, seeing that, she's following him, he gets out and he says, well, lady, what are you doing? And she said, well, I'm told by my husband that I should follow the snowplow to be safe when I go home. Well, he said, you're certainly safe, but you're never going to get home following me around this Walmart parking lot. Okay, have any of your mothers done that sometime? I don't know, but there you go. I hope you had a fun time with this. I don't think I should bore you anymore, so thank you for listening, and I hope you had a laugh or two, or maybe you booed. You can give me a response on this, telling me how many chuckles or how many boos you got when you were watching or listening to this podcast. This is your Grandpa Don. Have a lot of laughs. Have fun.